Yeah, no, it's interesting. So how critical would you say that innovation is to uh, quote to cash?
Oh boy.
And I guess it would depend also on the size of the company and where they are in their growth strategy, right? And at what point do you really start deriving efficiencies in that area?
Oh, there are foundational things we talk about in Quote-to-Cash, and there is innovation is must. So what I would say is, um, one of my old boss used to say that innovation has an unlimited budget, but that's the case or not with the SMBs. But the way I see it is, I have to ask the question very critically. If this is what we are doing today, are we going to do the same thing tomorrow or not? In the new business model, are we going to do the same thing or not? And sometimes answer is maybe. And you have to be really critical about what you want to do. And innovation is a very important piece in that, because the decisions you are making is what is going to change the direction of the company and then taking forward. So my approach to the innovation is fast fail. I want you to innovate and iterate, but also wants to fail fast so that you can learn and see if it works or not. So that is how I operate. And then, in this whole 1 year in Aryaka, and then we have just completed the quote to cash process, and took 9 months to bring it to the way we want to sell. We have attempted many new things, but my mantra to my team is fail fast, prototype it, and say if this is what is really needed, or is this a good to have future or a must have future, and decide, and then quickly test it out and then do it. If it doesn't matter, it's in a quoting space or it's in a contract space or in order space, it doesn't matter what business function. We got to show it's going to stick, and we should show the results quickly. It's a MVP, which everybody talks about most valuable on a product. We need to put it MVP. So you have to innovate, you have to iterate, you have to test it, and fast fail. You don't want to spend tons of your resources towards that.
Right.
So yep, innovation is important, but we need to continue to think in every day the innovation is the way to move the needle.
Yeah, I know when we've had conversations with other CIOs in the Bay Area, they'll say, fail early, fail soon. And if you can't provide a value within 90 days, many of them cut the project. And if you're a systems integrator, consulting company, that could be a pretty tight timeline, right, for some innovation. So, yeah. Well, how would you suggest, speaking of that, getting the buy-in from, the executive teams, the stakeholders, for example? You talked a little bit about in the article about establishing, a committee that kind of oversees things. So in your career and in your experience, how have you gone about putting those keystones in place where you have that steering committee, where you have that executive buy-in? How did you go about that process, and what did you learn from it?
It's again, it's an art, and it's not a science, to be honest. And especially when you're dealing with stakeholders of that powerful stakeholders, we have to address the problem what they are facing. If I'm sitting across the table with a CRO and then I'm talking about a problem with the finance, that may not stick it. And the problem which I could have a conversation with the CRO and say, hey, the things which is being done in the sales are really impacting the CFO. I think you both need to talk, or we all three need to come together and then talk about how do we solve the problem as together, not as siloed. We all know that, team is what makes it, and results produce better results than as individual. So that's the notion we need to take. I think as the leadership start to see the problems or the issues being created in the upstream has a huge impact on the downstream, and they do realize it, and sometimes they don't have enough resources to dedicate it. And that's where I come in as a business technology person and say, I understand you both have two different set of problems, but really the problems are the same, because that's being created by one is impacting the other. But if we bring those, all of us come together and then take the responsibility of the problem within your own area, and then see how that impacts or solves the other area, then we can embark on that journey. So that is how I look at it. We normally sit down with the CRO, CFO, and then CMO, and then the success CSM leader, and then see how each one, what kind of a problems they are facing, and then what's the common problem they are really up against, and then how a technology can solve that problem to streamline everything. So it's a journey I had to go through at Aryaka, even before in my prior engagements, where business needs to tell us, are they ready to solve that problem?
Mm-hmm.
Because if they say there is a problem, but they are not committed to put their resources to do the job, then it's very difficult to solve. Because
sure.
Any of these transformation initiatives, I would say business has a 50% commitment, and the technology team comes in and does the another 50. So they have to be not only committed to see the end results, but they also must commit for the resources. It could be their own resources or money or whatever it is. They have to really invest into that. And look back into now, we just released the project at Aryaka. I can see the number of hours spent by my finance leadership team. My sales is mostly, really, to be honest, it's a sales. 80% of the time went on to sales. Then CSM team along with it. We had so many discussions over the months. Even during the COVID, it was just calls were going left and right and day and night to talk about the problems. And then, their commitment is what brought us here. If they have not committed, I would not be succeed.
Yeah.
So it's all leadership commitment. They put their people along with, they put the funds to make it happen.
Yeah, you're right. So it's a good point to what you said at the beginning of that. It's an art, not a science, and that really is kind of the way of life, right? It's an art, not a science. Awesome. Well, I know we could keep talking about this stuff all day long. Any other closing comments? Any takeaways you want the folks out there to hear about the topic at hand?
Yeah, sure. I know. Again, and I'm happy to connect with me. I mean, I have you're going to be posting on LinkedIn, and then I'm happy to support any way possible. What I would the takeaways for me after completing this initiative or embarking on the newer initiatives is three things I want you to be very, very focused. Number one, you have to start asking questions, because these are not a small initiative. They are transformation initiatives. It requires a lot of resource commitment from the individual groups. So you have to start asking questions. What is a must-have future? What is a good-to-have future? And then cut a balance. And then the second thing, as you get into the project, and there are good number of issues will come in, and then you need to start talking about what is critical and what not critical to run a business. And you need to be really, cut a balance on that. The third and the most important thing I would say is change management, because the leadership is committed to drive this. We are able to do it, but the people on the floor, the real workers who use this tool, if they are not embark on this journey, it's bound to fail. So I would say spend a good amount of time on change management to make sure to understand the people who really use this technology, to know where they are going from where they are today. I mean, if we don't differentiate or distinguish between those two, they're still stuck in the old world. They can't step into the new world. So I would say the change management is the third most important thing one should focus.
So understanding where you're at defines where you want to go, and then the definition of how we're going to get there. Yeah, in that order.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Venkat, for being here. Terrific discussion. I will put a link to his article in the description here on YouTube. If you haven't already, do subscribe to our podcast. We have lots of other guests queued up to come and talk with us. So thanks, Venkat, for being here. Terrific discussion today.
Thanks, Dan. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.